Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I know it's been quite a while since I've posted on here, but with the new Create 0.3.2 update, I figured what a perfect time to come back to YouTube, starting off with a new video, going through all the new changes and a bunch of the updates associated with the new update. I've spent quite a lot of time putting this all together, and I know the devs have spent a whole lot of time getting this ready, so I really hope you guys enjoy and look forward to seeing all of the new stuff in the new Create mod update. So before we dive into this new update, Create does have a new dependency, so you are required to install the Flywheel mod before running the game. So if you're having any issues starting up, that could be what it is. Go ahead and download that mod and you should be good to play. So the first thing we're going to go over in the new update is the linked controller item. So the linked controller basically allows you to connect to redstone links from anywhere in the world using your own little handheld controller. You have 4 buttons on the left. You have W, A, S, and D. You can also do left shift and spacebar. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 controls at your disposal that you can use to link up to whatever redstone contraptions you want. To link them up, it's pretty much the same way as hooking up redstone link. You place your redstone link in the world, and then you're going to shift, right-click on your linked controller. And that'll bring up the GUI where you're going to actually key in all of your channels. Up is W, down is S, left is A, right is D. This up on the right side is space, and the down on the right side is your shift key. So you have all those controls that you can assign to connect to whatever factories you want, and each of these controllers is actually linked to itself, so you can have multiple controllers for multiple different contraptions, and you can just put them in Anvil, name it. So I can name this one Elevator A, and this one controls my elevator. And I can have like another one that says like sugarcane farm that'll turn off and on my sugarcane farm, or whatever crazy contraptions you guys want to hook these up to. So this next item is kind of out of left field for me, but I think it's super fun, and I'm really excited to start using it, which is the crafting blueprint. What the crafting blueprint does is it allows you to place down this blueprint in the world. It kind of has the same way as placing a painting, where it'll kind of fit to the space you give it. So you can have a 1x1, 2x2, or a 3x3. This can be placed on a wall, on the ground, or even on the ceiling. And what this allows you to do is set recipes at each one of these squares. And all you got to do is say, hey, I need a boat. I just right-click that. It'll use 5 wood planks and give me a boat. If I want a stair, I can get some stairs, or let's say I want a whole bunch of planks. You can actually shift right-click, and it'll craft as many as you can up to a stack. So it didn't use all my wood, but it did craft up to 1 stack. Now, if I want to set my own recipe, let's say I want to make a wood pick. So all you do is you just right-click on the slot, put in your materials. When you're done, hit the check mark, and all I got to do is right-click on it, and I'll get my pick. Now, what you can see is that I'm actually out of materials now. So it kind of tells you what items you need to make the recipe. So it says, I have 2 wood planks, I have 2 sticks, but I'm missing 1 wood plank. So I know that I need to go grab 1 more wood plank. I can do that, and then I can craft my pickaxe. Now, it does actually give you a kind of secondary display slot. So let's say I want to craft a oak slab, but for some reason I want to show a pick with it. I can do that, and it'll show the pick and the wood slab. So when I right-click it, I'll get the wood slab. The pick is just kind of an extra little decoration that you can use for whatever you want. I'm sure with some modded stuff where items look the exact same and you want to still differentiate them apart, that's what it could be used for. But super cool block, and I'll definitely be using it a lot in any of my future storage or crafting rooms. The next addition to the Create mod is the copper Backtank. Now the copper Backtank is a super cool little block. It adds functionality for a few new items, which is the diving helmet and diving boots, and it also provides power to the potato cannon as well as the extendo grip. The extendo grip and potato cannon will still work without the Backtank. However, they will take durability damage and will eventually run out. So the Backtank basically just powers those items. Now, the way the Backtank works is you craft it. It's a relatively simple craft, copper tier. Should be pretty easy to get. And then to charge it up, all you got to do is place it so that a shaft is right above it. It'll charge up, and once it's fully charged, you can just put it on your back slot, and you'll wear the little backpack. Now what's super cool about this is there's actually some enchantments you can give it. So if I go ahead and take it off and throw it in my enchanting table, I have capacity 1, capacity 2, and capacity 3. So capacity 3 essentially doubles its capacity, and the capacity 1 and 2 just give it a bit more. So I can go ahead and enchant it with capacity 3, pop it back on here, and you'll actually see it charging up. So those little particles indicate that it's charging. It's basically sucking up air. Then once that's done, you can just pick it up and put it on your back. So to kind of go along with the back tank, you have 2 new armor pieces, the diving helmet and the diving boots. So the diving helmet basically allows you to breathe underwater, and the diving boots essentially make it so that you can walk underwater. So we'll hop into a vanilla world and I'll show you guys what they do. So here I am in just a regular old world, wearing my backpack, copper bag tank, diving helmet, and diving boots. If I go and hop in the water, you'll notice it behaves quite differently than you're used to. So you actually, when wearing the boots, you actually walk around in the water. So this would be super cool if you have some kind of underwater settlement or city. You can just kind of walk from structure to structure, breathe underwater with your helmet, and just walk around with your boots. Now you do actually see on my HUD, I actually have a little timer that actually tells me how long I have of breathing time. So it tells me I have 13 minutes and 29, 28, 26 seconds. So that'll slowly run down, and once it's out, you will actually start drowning just like normal, but the boots, the diving boots should still function. Now, if I take off my boots, I can still swim normally with the helmet on. The boots basically just make it so that you walk underwater. It's super cool little features, and these are some awesome new armor pieces that I think really work well with the crate mod, and I'm really excited to build some kind of underwater city with these and use them to move around. So the next item we're going to go over is the potato cannon. Now what the potato cannon does is you basically load up some kind of food item and you can fire it off like a cannon. So for my testing, these are all the items I found that it works with. It might work with more, it might work with less. Feel free to test it on your own. From what I saw, all of the items seem to do the same damage. There are a few items that don't actually do damage, like I noticed pumpkin pies didn't seem to do damage, but definitely feel free to test it out and play around with different ammos and see what they do. I think it'd be cool if they all did different types of damage, but for now they don't. So I'm just going to start by grabbing some potatoes, and we'll go back to my little shooting range and aim and fire. And you can see it did, how much was that? Just 2.5 hearts of damage. So 2 hits, we can take down a cow. Now there are a few food items that actually give special effects. So we have golden apples. Enchanted golden apples will actually give the same buffs it would give a player if you ate it. Honeyed apples will give you speed. Baked potatoes and poisonous potatoes have some really fun effects. Baked potatoes actually set fire to the mob, and poisonous potatoes give you poison. Blaze cakes give you fire, and then glowing melons give you the glowing effect. So go ahead and show off the baked potatoes. You see it actually sets the mob on fire. And if I go ahead and switch my weapon, or my ammo, the poisonous potato will actually poison the enemy. Pretty fun. A really cool little new weapon that I think people will make some good use with. I could definitely see it being used in some sort of PvP map. So the next thing we're going to go over isn't necessarily a new block, but it's a new crafting method. So if I go over to deployers and press U, I'll see this new crafting thing, which is sequenced assembly. Now, what sequenced assembly is basically you put an item through a sequence of either using deployers or saws. I'm sure they'll add more items to that eventually, but for now it's just deployers and saws. You put it through that sequence and you end up with some kind of output. So they've changed 2 recipes and added 1 new one. The new one is to make the precision mechanism, and then they've changed it so that cogwheels, both large and small, can be crafted through this method. Now, you can still craft them the normal method, but this one is much more efficient in its material use. So you get 12 cogwheels with only 4 buttons. Not a bad deal. Not a bad deal at all. So definitely a really cool little crafting method, and I'll show you how it works here. Now, this is something that's pretty easy to automate. All I got to do is put it through the first deployer, second deployer, and the saw, which is the recipe for the large cogwheel. The small cogwheel is simply through the button and then the saw. Now what you'll notice is I got these incompleted cogwheels. What that means is that it did not go through the full sequence enough times. So we sent it through the first sequence, but if I look at the recipe for those cogwheels, you'll see that large cogwheels need to go through it 3 times. So if I send it through again, I'll go through step A, which is the wood planks, step B, which is the wood buttons, and then step C, which is the saw. And now it'll say, oh, I gotta start back over with deploy oak planks, and then deploy oak button, and then cut with saw. So I'll throw it back here on the first one. It'll go through our 3 actions, come off the saw, and I'll have my 6 large cogwheels. So the new item we have added that uses this new crafting method is the precision mechanism. This is used to craft some of our late game items, so rotational speed controller, mechanical arm, potato cannon, and extendo grip. And to craft this, all you gotta do is feed a golden sheet through 3 deployers, small cog, large cog, iron nugget, and then just do that 5 times. And we should get our golden sheet. So if I actually look at the recipe for the precision mechanism, you only have a 67% chance to get the precision mechanism. Then you have a 33% chance to get some random junk. So what we just witnessed is we got a bad roll, we did not get our mechanism, and we did get our random junk. So you only have a basically 2 out of 3 chance of getting the mechanism, and then a 1 out of 3 chance of just getting some random junk. Now this is something you'll actually experience with all of the different materials you can craft using this method. So the precision mechanism has a 33% chance for junk, and then the cogwheels have a 22% chance of getting some junk. So I went ahead and did a bit of a test. I ran 3 stacks of each of the items through the system, and this is what I got. For small cogwheels, I got a really good output for just 3 stacks of andesite alloy, as well as a few little extras, which was andesite alloy, andesite, iron nuggets, and sticks. That's that random junk. For large cogwheels, it's much the same, exact same types of items. You can either void those, store them, feed it back into the system, whatever you want to basically just use these up so your system doesn't get all filled up. Now for the precision mechanisms, I got a few more junk items. Now this is, keep in mind this is 3 stacks of golden sheets. Our 66% chance would be 2 stacks back. We got 2 and a little more in this chest. I actually ran this one twice just to see. And in this one we got 2 stacks and a less. If you actually average those out just by taking those 2, we actually have 2 stacks even, so you'll get about 2 stacks for every 3 stacks you put in, and then all this junk, the kind of junk you'll get is going to be clocks, crushed gold, cogwheels, shafts, golden sheets, gold nuggets, andesite alloy, and iron ingots. So this next addition is something I didn't even know we needed till we got it. So first we got the peculiar bell. Peculiar. I struggle saying that word. But anyway, this is a bell you craft with some brass. It's got a really beautiful texture to it, and it just has the same sound as the regular vanilla bell. Then we have the haunted bell. So to craft the haunting bell, we take the peculiar, we take the other bell, and you just place it over a soul campfire, and basically what it'll do is it'll turn that bell into our haunted bell. Now what the haunted bell does is, if it's on the ground and you right click it, it'll ding, and it'll get this big, basically circle of ghosts. And what these ghosts are showing you is anywhere where mobs can spawn. So if I just grab a torch, I place a torch right here and then ring the bell, you'll notice as it goes past, all the ghosts will spawn, but they won't spawn near that torch. What that's telling you is that mobs can spawn in all this area, but this area is safe. Now this also works just by holding the bell. So I can just walk around, place a torch, okay, that's good, walk over here, need to get that done. It does not work in your offhand, sadly, but you can fix that by just putting your torches in your offhand and then walking around, lining up your space. Now, what this is really useful is, let's say you're down deep in a cave and you want to make sure that mobs aren't going to spawn on you. All you got to do is place down your bell, give it a ring, look for anywhere where those ghosts are spawning. You see they won't spawn around the torches. and just light up those areas. You could also alternatively pick up the bell and run around with it, looking for anywhere where those ghosts are spawning and lighting it up. When held, the bell will do a 7 diameter circle of checked areas for spawning spaces, and when rung, the bell will do a 21 wide radius circle checking for spawning spaces. So the last addition, I'm calling this an addition, but realistically it's just a pretty big change, is to the creative Worldshaper. Originally, this was just called the Worldshaper, and what they did is they went ahead and got rid of the block zapper from the game and put the mechanics into the Worldshaper. So now if I shift right click, I have two new options. I have surface and cluster. So surface is basically the same thing we had before, where it will pick out a block and it'll basically do everything on that surface. So you can place blocks there. You could also replace or clear those blocks. And then the cluster basically does the same thing about replacing blocks, but it'll pick every block that's attached to it. And these ranges are actually upped. With a block zapper, you can do a max of 7. Now with a world zapper, you can do a max of 10. Now this next change is something that is more than welcome in my book. So if you press escape, you'll get this new little button that'll bring you to this little create menu. It gives you a button to basically edit all the configs, a button to go to the project page, ponder index, support the creators of the crate mod, report issues, and then return to the menu. Now what I'm really interested in is this configure menu. Now what this does is it basically lets you do all of the settings for create and change and update them to however you want to play the game. So this first button is client settings. Nothing crazy in here. Definitely feel free to look through this if you want, but if you want just the vanilla create experience, I wouldn't change any of these things. World gen settings, kind of same deal. I wouldn't change much of this, but if you're ever having issues with it and say copper isn't spawning anywhere, maybe change the frequency, height, cluster size, whatever you need to do to make so that you can find your stuff. So this last button is gameplay settings. So in gameplay settings, you have curiosities, fluids, infrastructure, kinetics, logistics, recipes, schematics. Feel free to look into these if you want, but where I'm interested in is the kinetics. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up. You'll have contraptions, encased fans, stress value, and a whole bunch of other options. Now the few that I'm really interested in is first up the top is contraptions. If you go ahead and click that, you'll see maxed blocks moved. Now, if you're ever building a machine and it's bigger than you can handle, go ahead and up this. I found that I've doubled it in a world and I pretty much hit that doubled and I still worked just fine. Everything loaded just fine. So I would recommend that if you want to build some really cool big stuff, you can change this. You can also change the cart coupling length. That's basically how long a cart can be before it won't couple anymore. Basically, this just allows you to make some bigger things. And now the last thing in this contraptions area is movable spawners. You can no longer move spawners by default in the create mod. You can activate it very easily by just changing this to movable, but by default, spawners will move with the contraption, but you cannot pick up the contraption. So you can move them around using a cart contraption, but you cannot pick them up. Very important to know. The other thing I noticed that they changed is that minimum windmill sales is now 8. Before it was actually just 1. You could actually run a machine off on windmill sales, so if you still want to do that, you can just go ahead and change this value to 1, and you'll be able to get away with that. So, as with pretty much every crate mod, a few items have actually been removed. Some of them sadly, some of them not so much. So, the first thing that's been removed is the block zapper. This one I'm really disappointed by. I love the block zapper, just made vanilla so much more rewarding, I guess. Like, in my mind, if you're gonna have the schematic cannon, may as well have the block zapper along with it. Really sad to see it go, but I get why. It kind of does make sense, but that's something I'd love to see added back in. Hopefully they do add it back in at some point, but block zapper has been removed. The next one is the deforester. I believe the reasoning for this is everybody had been using little saw contraptions where you just put down a saw, put a crank on it, and just saw down a whole tree at once. And everybody got used to that. By the time you actually are able to craft a deforester, there's really no point. It's pretty much useless. Now the next two changes are the integrated circuits and lapis sheets have been removed. Those were basically replaced by the precision mechanism, and all that does is it basically just makes it so that there's a new way to craft those things. Instead of everything being locked behind automated crafting, you have this new way to craft stuff, which I think is awesome. I think this is a really cool change they made, and I'm pretty happy about it. Now the next thing I'm going to go through is all of the changes that were done to the mod. Now I'm not going to go through every single one of these items, and I'm not going to go through any of the bug fixes. If you're interested to see those, the full changelog is going to be linked down in the description, but without further ado, let's get started. So the first one is that you can now dye Nixie tubes. So all you got to do is just grab your favorite color. Let's say I want to dye this red. Just grab your red, right-click the Nixie tube, and you'll actually dye it that color. Next is that card assemblers now have their preferred direction. When you place it down, it'll have this little arrow on top, and that is going to be the way the cart is going to want to travel once you create it. Now the next change is something that I'm so happy about. When you walk on belts, you'll still get pushed, but when you're actively moving, you can move freely around, and you don't just get kind of sucked into the one location. Now if you do stop, you will get sucked in, but you can now move freely around. And honestly, my favorite part about this whole update, if you wear the diving boots, you can just walk on belts. You can just walk on them. No problem, you don't move. It's amazing. No more shifting and accident letting go and being flung off into your machine. You can just walk around. This means that I will always be wearing the diving boots. This is very welcome. I love this. This is amazing. Now, one new addition that I wasn't expecting and I think is a pretty cool little addition is that you can now place horizontal water wheels. And you can actually power these by just placing a water bucket and then just blocking off one of the edges, which will give you your kind of max yield of that water wheel. And this is actually the exact same power as you would get from a vertical water wheel, but if you want to build like a big tower of water wheels, now you can. So the next change is that milk coming out of a pipe will now remove effects. So if I go ahead and drink this potion, give myself speed 2, walk in the particles, it'll instantly remove it, just like drinking a bucket of milk. So the next change is that if you're holding a wrench, you can now immediately break both rails and redstone. Now this next change is super helpful. So there's now an attribute filter using shulker boxes that says, is shulker empty? So basically what you can do is you can add this variable, says, is shulker empty? If yes, then go ahead and put away. If no, then maybe I want to take all my items and sort them out right away. I can say if shulker isn't empty, put it here. If shulker is empty, put it here. Awesome little addition. So there were two little changes to the empty blaze burners. First is that you can now right click them with soul sand, which will give it the blue fire, the blue soul fire. Cool little thing. I actually wanted to do this before and I was kind of sad when I learned that we couldn't. You can also use a splash water bottle to extinguish them. So this next change is that Obsidian can no longer be moved with a mechanical piston. Now what's really nice is that it'll actually tell you unmovable block Obsidian at 1321 or 135721. It'll actually give you the location of this block so I can just find it, break it, and then your contraption can start to move again. Now this last change is that there have been a whole bunch of new sounds added to the Create mod, so I'm just gonna turn my mic off and let you guys enjoy the sweet sounds of machinery. And that sums up the new Create 0.3.2 update. I've really missed doing this, and I'm really excited to be back. So I'm going to be coming back with a few new series starting up in just a few weeks. So if you guys are interested to see those, hit that subscribe button and watch out for live streams that'll hopefully be happening within the next week. All right, thank you guys for watching. Bye-bye.